Welcome into Week 6 of the Block O Show here on Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio and Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio TV. I'm Caleb Spinner. Alongside me is Matt Goldman, Tyler Danburg, and Kole Emplit. Back with you for another week. Our third together as a full crew. We've had some substitutions in and out. Getting ready for our first road trip, which I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking forward to 4 hours one way with you guys in a car. But we're going to be talking about Ohio State at Michigan State, again, for the first road contest of the season for Ohio State. Two teams that are very unbalanced on paper. We'll be talking about that here for a minute. But first, we are presented by Barrio Tacos. We'll have a read about them in the middle of this episode. Go check them out if you need something for lunch. Looking at last week, let's start talking about this, gentlemen. Looking at last week, Ohio State easily got the win over Rutgers. I don't think that margin of victory is small enough to say that anything was in doubt. I think that was a dominant win for Ohio State. What does Ohio State carry in from that game, Tyler, when they go on the road to Michigan State?
Defensively, they carry a lot of momentum because they stopped the good running attack, and on the offensive side, they attacked a great run defense. So I'll give you one highlight on the defensive side of the ball. Steele Chambers set the tone for the linebacking corps. He had 11 tackles and an interception. Look for Chambers to have a big role against the Spartans this weekend.
And then coming in, of course, Mayan Williams, 5 touchdowns, ties the school record that's been holding there since 1984. Technically went back to 77 or the mid-70s there, but then was tied in 84, and that's what the record plaque reflects right now. But Ohio State is going to have to rely on their receivers, and we'll talk about more of that later. But what's the expectation going to be for Mayan Williams? And I'll just generalize it, that running back core in total, having put up such a great performance against Rutgers that now there's going to be a target on their back.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely going to be a point of emphasis, especially against this really good Michigan State defense. And Mayan Williams had those opportunities to get 5 touchdowns just because his other back, Travion Henderson, did not play. So, of course, they're going to try to get that more dual back a game going against Michigan State. But, of course, Ohio State's going to look to attack through the air again.
Here's looking at you, Matt. Name the reference to the audience out there.
Casablanca.
Way to spoil it, Tyler. But yes, I should know better than to make a reference with you in the room because you'll call it there. But yes, Casablanca reference. Here's looking at you, Matt. Michigan State comes in having lost their 3rd straight game last week. They're now 2-3 on the season. Only 2 wins coming from a MAC conference is what Tyler brought the nugget in earlier today. They have yet to prove themselves against a Power 5 school. What do they have to do to right the ship?
I think for Michigan State's run the ball, they've proven success with that with their running backs for the past couple years. Jalen Berger, over 300 yards so far on the ground for Michigan State. I think keep running the ball. Jarek Broussard as well, over 170 yards on the season. So just run the ball against Ohio State. But as Tyler mentioned, this Ohio State's defense was phenomenal. And then adding Tommy Eichenberg, who Tyler didn't even mention yet, who leads the team in tackles, this Ohio State defense is going to give Michigan State trouble, but they want to find some consistency and some offensive movement they need to do on the ground.
Now, looking at you, Kole, to continue the reference here going on, you talked about Jarek Broussard and Jalen Berger. They are going to be big on the ground. We talked about Ohio State's running back core having a bullseye on their back in terms of the Michigan State defense. It's going to be the same thing vice versa. Ohio State knows that those two are very capable individuals between the tackles and outside the ends. What do they have to do to get the win against Ohio State?
You just have to be aggressive. Like we talked about, Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers had a phenomenal day last week against Rutgers. And for them, they're going against a top defense in Ohio State that it's unusual. It's always compared to Ohio State always has top offense, never really that defense. Now with Jim Knowles coming in, this defense is so much more confident. And the example is Tommy Eichenberg saying they've never seen him be able to come out of his shell like he has against Jim Knowles, with Jim Knowles as his new defensive scheme. So it's just really how they can really establish that run game early on. It'll be going forward against this Buckeye team.
Now, of course, Michigan State has some very capable pass catchers in their receiving core, so not to focus on the running backs too much as to discount what the wide receivers are able to do, Tyler. But what are they going to have to do? It's a similar thing to what we talk about Ohio State every week, coming in with a clear focus from the week before that changes up every week, but coming in with a clear focus of where their bread is buttered and having to distract the defense from that are having to prove to be this two-pronged team. What does the wide receiver core have to do to distract Ohio State's defense from the running backs?
Well, I think we're going to see just a lot of different pass catchers for Michigan State, and the tight ends especially. Last week, Malik Carr hauled in a touchdown reception. So the tight ends, I think, going beyond the wide receivers, they're going to add a lot of depth in the flat, in the boundary, just trying to find ways to get past this Ohio State secondary that might be a little bit depleted going into this weekend.
And we've seen the Buckeyes start to get their tight ends involved with Mitch Rossi and most notably Kate Stover. But now looking at Matt once again here, Mayan Williams can't do it at all. And not saying he did it all last week, not saying that anybody else had, less responsibility than he did for that win. But, clearly, coming out of the player of the game, almost 200 yards along with those 5 touchdowns that we talked about at the top of the show. The wide receivers, again, I feel like we're talking about the same points for these two teams because they are so similar, albeit different records. It's the same strategy almost when you look at both of these teams. People like Marvin Harrison, Emeka Egbuka, they're going to have to come up and play big. Is there a way that Mayan Williams is able to get close, if not repeat? I doubt he'll repeat, but is he able to get close to his production while also getting the wide receivers involved? Do you see that being a possibility?
I think that is a possibility, but now that it looks like Travion Henderson might be back for this game this weekend, that will take away from some of Mayan's production. Just from what we're going to see is that they usually switch drives when they're both healthy. Mayan's going to have an effect on this game. I don't really think he affects the passing game that much. It's not a threat. It comes off the wheel route. I think for Ohio State, it's being able to have a healthy balance where if you can run the ball, keep running the ball. But if it's not working, you have wide receivers that can do it all. And you mentioned Kate Stover as well.
And there are a lot of different roles in the Ohio State offense, a lot of revolving players rotating around in the backfield. But the offensive line has been consistent, it has been constant, and it has been one of the best units in all of college football as well. They have allowed the fewest combined tackles for losses and sacks with 18. That's number 2 in the country, second to Florida.
And also Paris Johnson, 623 straight snaps, no sacks allowed. That's pretty incredible. And I think no one's talking about that this offensive line is really well balanced. CJ's all the time in the world he needs in the pocket. He's gotten sacked like maybe once, and that's because he's been dancing outside the pocket and running towards the outside. This offensive line has been really good. Donovan Jackson's came in. DeJuan Jones is a veteran. Matt Jones is also, I meant Donovan Jackson and Matt Jones. They've also come in there and had an effect on the game.
Yeah, absolutely. The running backs are certainly going to be feasting this weekend for both squads. And if you have a desire to go feasting, we recommend Barrio Tacos at their new location on High Street near 15th Avenue. Tyler, give us some information about that.
Well, Barrio Tacos is now serving tacos and margaritas late night each night and has an incredible happy hour with half off margaritas and $1 off tacos weekdays from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's the happy hour, but the fun doesn't stop just there. Barrio accepts Buck ID and is offering to-go and DoorDash options as well. You can also catch Barrio inside the Horseshoe during game days at Section 10A and at their taco truck Mondays to Fridays, parked right outside the RPAC.
And we know not everybody at Ohio State is going to be traveling up to East Lansing, this being their first time without filling up the shoe or without being able to fill up the shoe. Of course, you can go there, but I doubt you'll even get in there, much less you'll just be watching an empty turf field. So a lot of people are going to be having watch parties, no doubt. Barrio Tacos, perfect place to have your watch party catered for that. So make sure you are checking out Barrio Tacos and all that they have to offer. Gentlemen, we're going to let people get out of here a bit early. Looking at our score predictions right now, we'll start with Matt. We'll work our way around here. I'll go last so as to be respectful to Kole over there. I feel like I haven't turned to him as much as I have you guys, but let's start with Matt here. What's your score prediction for this week?
Well, when you look at Michigan State on paper, there is balance in the wide receiver room. They have Jacoby Windman, who leads the nation in forced fumbles. So there is some talent on this Michigan State squad that can give Ohio State trouble, but Ohio State's too powerful. They lead the nation in scoring per game with 48 points per game. I'm going to go with 52-10. Ohio State wins. I believe this is the Emeka Egbuka game where he continues to feast. Yes, he's been great all season, averaging over 100 yards per game, but I think he continues to show his capabilities. And if Jackson Smith and Jake does not go, this is Emeka's game.
Mel Tucker said coming into this week, guys, that they have to play complementary football. They need to play well on the offensive, defensive, and special team sides of the ball. And even then, like you said, Matt, it's going to take a lot to just hang in there with Ohio State. I have the Buckeyes winning at a closer score of 35-20, but I think it's going to be a really good one, and we're going to see a lot of offense and a lot of success in the red zone as well. I think inside from 25 yards out, that's where a lot of the bread is going to be buttered.
I think I follow both you guys. We talked about having a most balanced offense. Ohio State's the only team in the nation with at least 300 passing yards and 200 rushing yards per game. Incredible numbers. And when you put it like that, it's just really hard. We talk about who can really get going. Anyone on any given day for this team to go, and especially Maya Williams last week, 5 touchdowns. Who knows if someone's going to have a big game in the passing game today, on Saturday. They just have too many weapons, and for that, I just think they're going to pull away. I'm going to say 52-17.
I'll go with a blend of all of your scores here. I think this is, we've talked a lot about the running backs, and that's the one thing where Ohio State has been consistently good on defense. We talk about a new thing being the forefront each and every week, but we've always had consistent upfront guys, consistent upfront success on the defensive line. So I think that running game is going to get shut down. However, you look at where the points of concern were back in the secondary and how capable Michigan State's receivers are. So I'll say that the Spartans put up 2 touchdowns both through the air. They'll put up 14. I don't want to say a field goal. I don't like saying 17 because I feel like Ohio State's defense has been all or nothing. Either they allow a touchdown or you punt it on a 3 and out. So I'll say 14 for Michigan State, and then I'll go moderately big win for the Buckeyes. I'll go 42-17.
I think also a big thing that we haven't even touched about is can Payton Thorne throw the ball and have time in the pocket, because Ohio State's defensive ends,
right.
It feels like this could be a coming out game for JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Javonte Jean-Baptiste. It feels like one of those guys is going to explode. In this Michigan State offensive line, they don't have the most experience that we've seen out of offensive lines in this country. So if one of them can get to Payton Thorne's going to have trouble as the quarterback for Michigan State, and then he can't get the ball to his playmakers.
Listen to our coverage live from East Lansing, Michigan and Spartan Stadium on Saturday at 4 p.m. Our pregame festivities will kick off about 3 o'clock with our SGSR countdown to kickoff. We'll also have our From the Field preview show and our recap show on the field on our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram, and then after the game, YouTube. You can watch both of those there. Trying to see if we can do something, gentlemen, with the student crew for Michigan State. We did it last week with Rutgers. It was a pretty cool experience, so we're going to see if we can get some extra content in there with that student crew. But then, of course, the big game going up, Matt and Cole will have the call. Tyler and I will lead your pregame and halftime from the booth. Again, beginning at 3 o'clock, kickoff is set for 4. So make sure you're tuning in on ScarletandGraySportsRadio.com or watching our broadcast booth camera on SGSR TV on Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio's YouTube page. For Matt, Tyler, Cole, I'm Caleb Spinner. That's the show. We're out of here.